No.
All right, it's 8:01. We've returned back to open session, and we will be moving on to new business item number 3, which is consider and possible action on memorandum of understanding for potential development in TIF number 4. We did have some discussion in closed session about this, and I believe the consent of the council is to likely table this until the next meeting for further discussion. If that's the will of the council, I'll entertain a motion to reflect that.
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion and a second to table item number 3, the possible action on memorandum of understanding for potential development in TIF 4 till the next meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that's tabled till the next meeting. On to, let's see, number 4 was amended from the agenda, so we don't have to deal with that tonight. Number 5, consider and take action to authorize use of letter of credit for Highland Ridge Phase 2 to complete sidewalk ramps on Tower Drive. This is an item that Patrick spoke with me last week about getting on the regular agenda. This is discussions we've had in the last month about the need for the ramps over there where the new road is on Tower Drive, and there's some safety issues that have been concerned. So by pulling the use of the letter of credit, we have the ability to go ahead and have Davis Clark assist us in getting a contractor and putting those ramps in if the contractor decides not to do so. So basically a procedure that we have in place to do that. Any questions on this?
What's the last word from Redbud Homes on this one then? Me and this light are not
We
getting
get
along.
the message.
Yeah, Alderman Rule, our last communication with Steve Black from Redbud was that they had talked about getting them finished by June 8th. And then if that was not done, they would be looking at other contractors. And that's something that was of concern for staff. Our feeling was June 8th or, you know, in this time frame, if it can't be accomplished, that's when we need to intervene and get the project done. The one thing I will note, and maybe Davis can speak to it, is if we are staff able to utilize the letter of credit, we may run into the same scheduling issues with contractors. I'm just going to note that. We obviously all want that done very quickly, but it's just if maybe they won't apply as much force with a contractor to get something done. I don't know, but I'm sure they're doing their best. But I just want to raise that as the situation that we're looking at right now. But with this agenda item, at least we would have that quick ability to make an action and try to take steps to get this project done as it's been requested and of great interest by the council recently.
When was that conversation?
With Steve?
Yeah.
Well, it was had right after the last council meeting, but then I reiterated it last week. We've had several communications with the developer on the progress of this.
I'm just wondering if in the meantime, if maybe a contractor has come in and said, yeah, you bet, Steve, June 10th.
Right. That being said, I think, you know, if with the council's approval, we would still want to work with the contractor and try to come up with maybe a drop dead date to figure this out, but impose on the fact that we do have this to invoke if we absolutely need to.
Andy?
I think you just answered it. So this would be, we're saying, yes, we're giving you authorization for this, but let's try to work this out first before we actually take action.
That was my intent for bringing it forward.
Is there any harm to the contract or to the developer and when you do that, when you pull the letter of credit, does that go against their rating or anything?
Well, I think it is a little ding on their credit. I mean, the letter of credit is a credit, and
Correct.
the banks prefer that you don't ever use it. The contractors prefer that they don't ever use it. So yeah, it'll. I mean, it's not going to run them out of business or anything like that, but it certainly is it's a mark.
Okay. I mean, I personally feel that we should authorize the use of that credit but be, work with them a little bit more. But I really don't want to see this going out much more than another few weeks.
Yeah, Davis and I had a conversation about that today, and we're thinking about, being the summertime, being the fact that we've got the Carriage Festival coming up, the 4th of July, there's more traffic. It's a safety issue. We want to see it completed, but we certainly want to do everything we can to work with the contractor to have them do it. But with the little bit of leverage that we could have with this, maybe we can force some action a little bit more quick.
Matt Kenny?
I just want to echo what you said, Andy. I agree. I think this is getting kind of drawn out a little bit. And by pulling this letter, it's clear that we're moving with intent. I mean, we have a concrete plant in town. It's busy out there, but I don't think it's necessarily that busy. There's literally nobody who can pour 2 ramps and put in fields. And I think we're getting to the point now where it's clear that either you do it or we're going to find somebody who's probably going to be charging a pretty penny, since there is nobody to do it, and that's all for them. So, and I agree that coming up 4th of July and Carriage Fest, I mean, somebody rolls an ankle, we're looking at a lot bigger issue than pulling a letter of credit.
It's part of the motivational factor, I believe, in pulling this, is that it gets the contractor to move a little quicker, because we don't have an obligation to go out and get the lowest bid. And if they're looking at, their dollars, they have a contractor, they know what the cost is going to be, rather than get a bill in the mail. So we kind of hope this just prods them along a little bit. Jason, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you. I had one update, and then I had, I guess, just a piece of information and a recommendation. The update is, the contractor had indicated to me that he had some other concrete work that was currently existed, some driveways that he had to pour, and when that contractor came in, he was going to do this. I did stop down there today, and coincidentally, the contractor showed up and poured the concrete driveways, but didn't do the ramps. So that kind of tells me something that, it's obviously, I don't think the ramps are the priority, or he did obviously the homes first. There's also 9 items on the punch list, one being the ramps. The rest of them are fairly minor, but they're cleanup work. There's sediment in the storm sewers. There's a lot of dirt and debris in the gutters. Some of the sanitary sewer locator boxes have to be fixed or replaced. And so those things are still outstanding. Now, there has been some restoration requirements on the punch list that he's recently completed. But I would say, if you're going to pull the letter of credit, I would suggest doing it to cover all the remaining items rather than just the concrete ramps. That way we can tidy this up and complete this and get it done. I don't think there's a lot of cost with these other things. The concrete's going to be the bigger cost, so that would be my recommendation. And then lastly, I just wanted to note as a reminder that the letter of credit standing out there is in the amount of $39,125, and I would agree, if you're going to pull it, cost isn't your issue. Cost is, his issue, and getting it done is important. So there is enough money in that letter of credit, obviously, to cover the remaining items. So if you move forward, then you're probably best just to pull the full letter of credit and use what you need to get it done, and then refund whatever the balance is. So.
Matt, did you have a question?
I think Jason hit right on the head. If we're going to pull it, might as well pull it for everything. Cleanup work is something that they drag their feet on about all the time, and
Yeah.
DPW can go out there and do a lot of cleanup in storm sewer manholes we'll pay our guys to do it, or we'll hire a contractor. I think that's without question. Thank you, Jason, for adding the additional information from the punch list and whatnot.
Patrick?
And again, I don't dispute what Jason's saying for sure. He makes a lot of sense. Just that I think it's similar to the sidewalks. We give them a drop dead date and then give them an opportunity to say, okay, we're serious, so they can go ahead and do it. And if they fail to meet that, then that's when we would move with a letter of credit.
Okay, so as far as the action tonight, we can't really include what Jason had, we can't do this all at once, or?
Sure you can.
You can?
Yeah, you need to, you don't need to, you may adopt a motion that authorizes the city to pull the letter of credit after, pick your date, in order to complete the punch list and installation of the sidewalk as required by the development agreement. So you need to figure out what your date is and then authorize the city staff to take it from there.
Matt?
I think the fact that they had people out there pouring yesterday and said not to take care of it, I mean, motion to pull letter of credit for drop dead date for tomorrow. If they're not gonna do the work, and clearly they don't care, then they should pay accordingly, because the work needs to get done, and we're gonna hold them accountable if they're gonna come in town.
If you're serious, we have a motion on the floor to pull the letter of credit on June 7th, 2017 for the Highland Ridge Phase 2.
For all items listed by Jason.
I don't really think tomorrow is the right way to go.
If we're gonna show intent,
I don't disagree that this is urgent. I was thinking, like more like 1 week from today type of thing. But
We can have more than one motion on the floor right now if you want to pick out another date and we can move along.
thank you for that.
Matt's motion dies for lack of a second.
Yes.
so-
Trina, did you have something?
I motion to give them 2 weeks.
2 weeks from today?
Yes.
June 20th, which would be 2 weeks.
Well,
second.
too long, Andy?
Can I make another motion? Or is it
No,
too
you have a
late?
motion and a second on the table, so you have to
Okay.
deal with that first. Rod.
Did you second that?
Yeah, I did.
2
Sorry.
weeks, okay.
Just trying to move along.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table, or on the floor right now, to pull the letter of credit for Highland Ridge Phase 2 to include sidewalk ramps, and other remainders on the punch list, to be executed 2 weeks from today's date. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have a question. Is the drop dead date for work completion or work to be scheduled?
I was thinking work completion.
Completion, yeah.
So I wanted to give them a little longer.
Because everything's been scheduled already and not done.
Maybe we're complete, and if they don't complete it, then we refer to the letter of credit to use the money to do it ourselves. And that's why I went with tomorrow, because if they're not gonna do it, and they had people pouring yesterday, they decided to just not do part of the work that's been talked about for a while and is of a concern as well. Clearly, they're not gonna go forward and give them a week or 2 weeks to maybe schedule it, to then not do it, and then we have to go out and do our own requesting for work too. It's gonna be wintertime before this gets done. And we're gonna have somebody turn an ankle, 4th of July, Carriage Festival, and then we're looking at an issue of, because we couldn't get a contractor to do anything, we're looking at a liable lawsuit for lack of pedestrian access within town.
Jason, can I ask you, outside of the sidewalk ramps here and the other things that are on the punch list, what is a reasonable timeline? I heard you mention a few things as far as like sediment in the storm sewers, et cetera, but what is a reasonable timeline to complete those items? Are any of them large or?
Yeah, these items have been outstanding all spring, so, I mean, we're in June already. Certainly, the locator boxes, both the new ones and burying the boxes should be, I mean, it's less than a day effort. And cleaning, there was some cleaning they did on the outfall of the riprap that I had asked them to do, but they still haven't cleaned the street or the storm pipe. It's a very short storm pipe, so again, that's a day's worth of effort in my mind for a contractor to do. And then installing the sidewalk ramps, there's a couple days there in my mind, some prep work one day, some framing, and then the pouring, and then the restoration is probably another day. So if you'd add these all up, I would say theoretically in my mind, if they had a week to complete all the items, that would be reasonable. And again, if you give them a deadline of 2 weeks and they don't do it, you guys will have to contract, which will take a week and then a week to perform it. So you're 2 weeks out from the deadline if you end up pulling the letter of credit. So just kind of timelines.
Past the 4th
If
of
they
July.
do, if they do it,
Right.
if they do it, I think a week. If we give them a week from, I don't know, tomorrow or whenever they're notified tomorrow, I think that's reasonable. If they don't do it, then understand you guys have a couple weeks before ultimately you could pull the letter of credit and get completion just because of the coordination piece. I think that would be my thought process.
I have a procedural question. After a motion and a second, can Trina amend her?
If she chooses.
Trina, would you be willing to amend your motion to 1 week from tomorrow instead of 2 weeks?
I would be willing.
Could you do that?
Let's see, I'd like to recant my original motion and make a motion for 1 week.
1 week from tomorrow?
1 week from tomorrow.
So we'll call that the 14th.
Yes.
And the work should be completed by the
Completed.
14th. Rod has to.
Do I have to re-second?
Thanks.
I'll second. My second.
So Trina has amended her motion to reflect that the completion date of the work stated will be done by June 14th. And we have a motion and a second that reflects that. So I will reread the motion. There is a motion and a second on the floor to use the letter of credit for Highland Ridge Phase 2 to complete sidewalk, ramps, and the remainder of the punch list if no action has been, or if the work has not been completed by June 14th. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll have Ann take a roll on this.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Kenny,
No.
Malat,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rule,
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Motion passes.
5 yes, 1 no.
All right, on to item number 6 then, which is to consider and take action on a raise repair orders for 125 and 127 West James Street. This is an item that we have been discussing at the Committee of the Whole for several months. There is a short novel in our packet drafted by
Okay.
Paul Johnson that kind of outlines the history of this, and there's also some updates that are included. Besides those updates, there was a letter left on our desks for this evening's conversation from Gene Waddell, who's a partial owner of one of the properties. We also have Troy Rindy from 125 James Street, who's the property owner there. So I think what I'll first do is turn this over to Paul Johnson if any council members have any questions for him. But he can kind of outline where we are right now. There's a few updates in the back of this packet that kind of show what has happened in the last couple weeks since the last meeting, but I think that's probably the most important part to cover, is just that update.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for the short novel, but after the last committee, the whole meeting, I was directed to kind of give you the options of what's going on and what does this look like when the council decides to do something. And as I was going back through my file, I realized that I had a lot more information, because this has been going on for the better part of a year and a half or so. I had more information in my file than I had suspected, so I thought it would be a good idea to just start at the beginning and work our way forward. So the first half of the memo is historical in nature, but it shows that the city's been working on this for a while. There's been some contact with the two owners of the properties that are involved, and as we sit here today, we still haven't got a final resolution on this. The second half of the memo basically tells you where we are today. The good news is that since the last meeting of the Committee of the Whole, I have actually had a couple of conversations with Mr. Rindy, who's the owner of 125 West James Street, and I've had a couple of conversations with the affected tenant that lives at 125. Her name is Kayla Armstrong, and she may be sitting behind me. I don't know if she is or not. She was invited to come tonight if she's not here. And her comments and the information that she shared with me is in the memo as well, and that information is fairly important as you decide what you want to do here. And then finally, a couple days ago, I did receive a phone call from Gene Waddell. Gene explained to me that she thinks the stairway in question is in much better shape than I've been led to believe that it is. But it still is not where it needs to be. I think she will readily admit that, and her letter that is sitting on your desk bears that out. To my knowledge, Ms. Waddell and Mr. Rindy have not had any conversations about how to remedy the problem or how to take care of this in a somewhat expedient manner. And ultimately, that's probably what needs to happen at some point in time, because the Maloney family has the problem on the bottom, and Mr. Indy has the problem on the top. Or at least that's how I look at it. The issue before you and before the council is what exactly do you want to do with this or about this, and that's where we left it at the last meeting. And basically at the last meeting, I had the impression that you were considering two different choices. Choice number one was basically take some steps to remove the upstairs tenants until the stairs were repaired. Or number two was having the city go in and take care of this matter on their own and then billing it back to the landowners. As to the first point, to clarify that issue, and part of my going back and looking through my file, is that it appears now that the Department of Safety and Professional Services isn't overly concerned about the tenants that live in the front of 125 and 127 on the second floor, only about the tenants that live in the rear. So instead of dealing with 4 apartments, you're really dealing with one, the rear apartment at 125 and the rear apartment at 127. And I believe both of those are occupied. Ms. Armstrong lives in the rear of 125, and Ms. Mary Maloney lives in the rear of 127, I believe. So if you're looking at removing tenants, instead of 4 families, you're down to 2 families, but it's still a significant problem for the people that you're thinking about displacing. If you're looking at doing the repair work, the issue is once the city decides to take that step, will the city want to bring everything completely up to code? And if that's the case, now you're looking at doing 2 stairways instead of 1. You're looking at going into 2 private buildings and doing a fair amount of repair work. And once you start, you don't know what you're going to find. So it would be my recommendation that if you choose to go that option, that you pursue that option through the court system to at least get approval from the judge that you are going to do this, here's why you're going to do this, here's what it's going to look like, here's what it's going to end up being, and here's how you're going to get reimbursed for doing that. You don't have to do that. The raise order process gives you the option of either just doing all of this on your own motion or going through the court system to get a order from the judge for whatever it is that you decide to do. The last 2 pages of my memo are basically what the raise orders look like. The raise order is the first thing that you will be doing if you decide to do anything. And the raise order basically says, owners of 125 and 127, you have X amount of days to fix this to the city's satisfaction. If you don't fix this to the city's satisfaction, here's what we're going to do next. So that's basically where you are right now.
Matt?
Paul, I didn't even mention that, but it was kind of analyzed. If we go down the route of doing it ourselves, we have to update it with metal or 2 or do. How can we find that out? I mean, that's a pretty big impact to a decision one way or the other in regards to work and the amount of money incurred by cost-wise by the city.
That is an issue that if you choose to go that route, well, here, before I answer your question, Matt, I think for purposes of your conversation tonight, you should be looking at this in 2 steps. Step 1 is how long are you going to give the landowners to do something? And step 2 is if they fail, this very similar to your last agenda item. If they don't do what you are asking them to do within a certain period of time, then what are you going to do next? And the question that you raised is the second step, and that would be a conversation with the safety and professional services people and probably the city building inspector to find out exactly what it would be that we would need to do. We have information, and I think I can use the word consent, from the department right now, which is outlined in the raise order as to here's what's necessary for the landowners to bring the stairway up to acceptable code. But we all acknowledge that that is a kind of a halfway step in an effort to save the landowner some money. But I think it would pass muster from the safety and professional services people. But if the city's gonna go in and do it, are we gonna be held to the same standard, and do we wanna be held to the same standard?
Matt?
I guess, springboarding off of you, Paul, to get to part one of this, to hear kind of where we're at. I mean, obviously, we know where we're at via letters and conversations, but I think we have a property owner here, might want to hear what his intent is. I don't know if it's premature or if we want to get him up here right away, and I know we kind of let him sit for a while.
It's up to the will of the council. Yeah, Troy, if you wanted to come up to the podium, you're free to speak. This is the agenda item. Thanks for being patient.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I'm Troy Rindy. I own the LLC that actually holds title to the property. I've had the property since 2010. I own another property in Columbus as well. And I obviously don't represent 127, I just represent 125 West James. I've been down in Gulf Shores since December of last year. So I just was made aware of this council action about 2 weeks ago. So I'm kind of late to the game here. I didn't, know any of this was going on. Obviously, I was involved with the city of the Columbus Water and Light 2 years ago when they had issues reading the meters. At that time, I recommend they put in some digital meters that can be read from the ground, or relocate the meters to eliminate that issue. At that time, they didn't take my recommendation. Since then, they have upgraded the meters, so I understand that's no longer an issue. So again, I apologize because I'm kind of behind the 8 ball here. I don't want to rehash a lot of the stuff that Paul already has in here, so I'm going to skip a lot of this. All my tenants are long-term. They've been very happy with my property, so I have stuck significant investment into my property. I think I've stuck over 60 grand in the spa below. In January, I spent $7,300 on the roof. I had a sewer pipe issue. That was $2,900 I spent in January. So this isn't a property that I've been neglecting. I'm willing to do what I can to maintain my property and make my tenants happy. And to this date, they have been all very happy. Despite the attempts to, I guess, get my tenants out or whatever with the letters, they're staying put. So I see a couple issues with what's being proposed here. From I guess from more of a legal standard, and I'll just say right now I'm not an attorney, but I did research the raise order statute and other statutes that Paul has brought before you. So I have a handout, I guess. And I'm requesting that my property be removed from the raise order. So I'd like to just pass this around. So what you're looking at there is a picture taken from the property line of the back of the building. I drew a red line down that property line. My property's on the right, the Maloney's property's on the left. And as you can see, the stairs that are in question here are not on my property at all. I don't have an easement to maintain, repair the property. There's nothing recorded that I'm aware of. In fact, if I went there and actually tried to physically repair the stairs and comply with the city's request, I'd be trespassing. And to use your example, if I rolled an ankle, you know what happens then? So, I think based upon those grounds that, you know, my property needs to be excluded from the raise order. Basically, my hands are tied. Now, having said that, you know, I am willing, if we can somehow record an easement where I actually have right to the stairs to repair them and maintain them, I am more than willing to contribute, a half of the repair cost. You know, obviously, you know, I'm not necessarily going to agree to, you know, metal railings and, you know, all that stuff that's being proposed, because that's cost exorbitant. And even without that, I'm willing to contribute, a few $100s without all that, just to repair what's there. But the order of magnitude that you guys are asking me to contribute to a property that's not even mine, the stairs aren't even on my property. So I go and repair these stairs, and $5,000 is a number I heard would be my half, and then I don't even have legal right to them. I mean, the Maloney's could say, nope, not allowed to use the stairs anymore. So, I don't see how this is even legal from my perspective.
I don't know who was first, Matt.
Go ahead.
I guess just to springboard right off what you just said, what happens if, Mr. Rindy, if the neighbors say, tear off the stairs and vacate the upstairs apartment, and then you're sitting there looking at the stairs anyways, is that, I mean, obviously you're said that the stairs are not on your property, so you don't want to invest in them, but if they rip the stairs off, you're left building stairs or vacating that property as well. There's cost, and that's theoretically incurred by you if that happens.
So I'm not really sure what the question is. So if who would rip off the stairs?
If 127 vacates after the apartment and tears the stairs off, how is your tenant going to access their apartment?
They have their front access, stairs
have
and ramp to the ground. So they have access on both sides, 2 exits as required by the state building codes.
Paul, is my understanding? Oh, Jesus.
Where would the second access for Ms. Armstrong's apartment be if that stairway wasn't there?
Well, so just let me,
Because it was my understanding, Paul, that there was issues internally, that there was no access, correct?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. I mean, make sure I'm not making something up over here.
That's what we were told.
oh, maybe I should put my glasses on. I'd be able to see better. You know, those old eyes. There we go.
Troy, I think I can get to Matt's answer by just asking you a few questions.
Sure.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. You have 2 apartments upstairs
Mhm.
on 125. There's
Yes.
a front and there's a back.
Yes.
Okay. The front has access to West James Street by going down a front stairway.
Correct.
The rear apartment, can the rear apartment walk in a straight line and go down the front stairway?
I mean, it's a jog over like 3 feet, but it's a big common area.
But it has to go onto the property at 127 in order to get there.
Well, you know, this building was built in 1850, and it's like one building. It's a common.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you to the same place where we all need to be.
Okay.
So, and your tenant in the back of 125 uses this rear stairway regularly. right?
Well, the tenant has been advised on several occasions not to use the stairs in the
But
back.
she uses it every single day.
I'm not aware of that, so.
Okay, well, but she has told me that, and.
Okay.
So basically, every time she walks out that door, she's trespassing on the neighbor's property. So if we rip off that back stairway and it's just gone, she's pretty much screwed.
For using the back end.
For
the
lack of
back,
a legal
yeah.
way to put it.
Yeah, I would prefer to have stairs there, yes.
Okay. So the problem, and I don't think there's ever been a time where at least I've represented that the stairs are yours. The landing is yours, the stairs are the Maloney's. That's what the problem is that you have a shared access back there. You have a shared access for the 127 and the 125 apartment that both use that same door. I don't know exactly where the property line is. Nobody does, because it's a 1880s building and it's a common wall, it's a
Yep.
common wall building, or a party wall building, I guess would be the better way to put it. But that's all part of the problem. If those stairs aren't there, you have a tenant who doesn't have a legal access. And the city would prefer not to displace her. So something, either the stairs need to go away or she does. And I'm betting that you would prefer that the stairs don't go away because you would prefer to have her rent. She would prefer to stay there. That's why you're here.
So can I offer a couple comments? One, we appreciate you being here. I think we have all wanted to probably have this conversation before tonight. I just want to note, letters were sent to property owners on this in October of 2015 is when this started. Further action was taken earlier this spring, February 2017, and in May, a letter went out to the tenants, and now all of a sudden, we have responses from the landowners. So while I'm sympathetic to the difficulties in this situation, because there are two landowners and there is shared access, this didn't have to take this long to get the city to this, or to the council anyway, to get us to the point where we felt this action was needed. Working out easements or any other access issues that you have with an abutting property was your responsibility to do, either through contract or getting an easement officially. That's not for us to have to monitor. When a situation is brought to our attention, it's a public safety issue. I think the last agenda item shows very clearly that this council is concerned with public safety, and we give a lot of opportunity for people to do this in a way that is economic for them and timely for us. I feel like that has been pushed and pushed and pushed in this case. We want to work out something that is going to be reasonable for everybody, but at the foremost of my mind is these tenants have been dealing with this issue. The city has been patiently waiting, more patiently probably than necessary, for the landowners to work this out between them, and it just didn't happen until we started sending letters to the tenants. I think that's very telling, and personally I'm ready to take action on this. And I don't mind giving another drop dead date where we need to see something done, but that's just my 2 cents on how this has gone.
Well, I'd like to speak to that and address that as well. So yes, I was involved 2 years ago with the Columbus Water and Light. Their main concern at that time was reading the meters on the second floor. I recommended they relocate the meters or put in the RF ones you can read remotely. They declined to do that. They said that my tenants could self-read the meters because they have access and call it in. At that point, I assumed this issue was behind us. So, although it's the same issue that seems to have come up again, this has not been ignored for 2 years. It was addressed. I wrote a letter to the Columbus Water and Light, and the letter that was sent in February, I was out of state. I just returned on Saturday, so I've been gone for 6 months. I had a packet of my mail, which had the initial letter in it. It was sent down to me, and somehow it didn't arrive, so I lost a lot of mail. And lastly, if you go to Google and you type in my first and last name, phone number, my phone number shows up 5th in the search results. and you don't even have to click in to find it. Nobody called me.
I'm not an attorney, but I don't know if a phone call constitutes legally contacting someone or if it needs to be done in a different fashion. But I think that we've tried to get both property owners kind of on the same page, because it seems like the only possible cure here is to try to get 125 and 127 to sort of work together to remedy the situation as it exists. Otherwise, there's not going to be a cure for the problem unless everything is brought up to current code, which doesn't seem like is favorable for anybody here. We don't want to force 2 doorways and 2 separate stairways. So it seems like the building inspector has tried to look at this as, okay, since the stairway is here and it's existing, to make it safe, this is what we need to get done. I understand the water and light issue and that's been remedied, but from a public safety standpoint, if there is a fire in that building in the front stairway, where is the second exit for the upstairs tenants? And if it's this stairway, that becomes an issue for the tenants that live up there. And I think that's why this conversation has been happening here.
Okay. So the safety building codes require 2 exits from an apartment, a second floor apartment. One has to be a stairway or a ramp down to the ground floor. The second exit can be a patio or a balcony. 2 stairways are not required. The second issue, I have another handout.
Thank you.
You talk about forcing 2 independent stairways. There's an issue with that as well. My property is the red rectangle there. It goes to the telephone pole that's pointed out on the left with the arrow. And I have my exit from my first floor is down on the ground level, and there's a loading dock there, a cement loading dock for that exit. Now, I don't have property to the left and right to build a stairway. So if I'm forced to build a stairway on my own property down to the ground level, it's going to go into that small cement area there. Not a big deal, right? Except for all the tenants circled in yellow cross over my property to get to their dumpsters. So if there's a stairway there, you're going to be impeding on their access to the rear of their stores. There's Cheryl's down there, there's the Antique Mall and Overtimes. They all have dumpsters back there, and a garbage truck routinely backs in there. If stairs go into the only area I have, then it's going to affect other tenants.
Go ahead, Andy.
Paul, does this have to be a second stairwell, or is he correct in the the code?
And that's what I was looking for. I have the SBS code, but I couldn't find it.
You asked two different questions there, Andy.
All right.
It's not really the city's, well, it's the city's job to make sure that either A, the code is followed, or B, that the problem is remedied. Okay? And this all started with a report by the building inspector back in 2015. This was not me looking for something to do, and this was not Chief Meister looking for something to do, or Chief Keen looking for something to do. This was the building inspector saying, hey, we got a problem here. And so I rely on them. And at the end of the day, if there is an alternative to what the city has been proposing so far, sorry, Jesse. If there's an alternative to what the city has been proposing so far, okay, then that can be brought forward. And if it meets up with the code and if it meets with your expectations, fine. I think that's the best way I can answer that question.
I mean, I feel like, what I'm looking for, I mean, it's nice that we finally had someone come in and talk to us about this.
Agreed.
Other than, hearing from you what's going on, but I'm just looking for a level of comfort that, there is a plan in place to bring the building up to code and the safety of the residents is not in jeopardy.
The easy answer, and I don't disagree with a lot of what Troy has said. I do agree that if I was looking at this from his perspective, he's getting the short end of the deal a little bit, because a lot of the problem is not on his property. I agree. However, his tenants make use of those stairs and have been making use of those stairs for probably long before he owned the building. And in a perfect world, there would be a nicely written easement that would have been in place for the last 100 years that gives the 125 tenants the right to use the 127 stairway, and they would share the cost of maintaining that, and everybody would be happy. Well, that's not what we have here. And that's not the city's job. It's not the city's job to draft an easement that's not the city's problem at all. The city has one issue here and one issue only, and that is, does the city consider this to be a safety hazard? And if the answer is yes, what does the city want to do about it, if anything? And if the answer is no, then we don't have anything to discuss anymore. So, and that's exactly what the raise order statute is all about. Does the city does the city make findings that this is a problem? Is this building old? Well, of course it is. Is it dilapidated? Well, not really, except for the stairs. And in the statute, there's a threshold of 50% of the value of the property. So we're talking about replacing a stairway here. So we're way under the 50% rule. So you're not talking about tearing down the building. You're talking about giving the owner the opportunity to fix the problem. And again, I don't disagree with what Troy is telling you, that a large part of the problem is not on his property. I agree with that. But it's used by his tenants. The landing is not strictly, but very large part benefit to his tenant. And again, in a perfect world, this would be a conversation between the Maloney family and Troy. This would be about a 5-minute conversation, and you'd have a new set of stairs.
Have you made any contact with the Maloney family?
I've tried, not recently, but in the past.
And when I did speak with Ms. Waddell last week, I did give her Troy's phone number, so she has it. And again,
You have not heard from her, I'm assuming?
No.
And again, it's not the city's job to get in the middle of that either, but.
Well, I'd like to reiterate that if there had been, that was what you laid out as what would be my preference, is to get an easement in place where we share the cost. Without that, I couldn't in good conscience contribute significant resources to repair stairs that belong to somebody else. They're not on my property. None of the stairs are on my property.
Even though your tenant benefits directly from having the stairs.
That's why I'm willing to do the easement, and that's why I'm willing to, do the easement and pay for half of it. I'm not trying to wash my hands and say it's their problem. I am more than willing to, to fix it up for the benefit of my tenants, but I need some guarantees that, with the legal recorded easement. So.
Have you considered hiring an attorney and taking that step?
Yes. Without that, my hands are tied. At this point, I don't have an easement. The steps aren't on my property. And the raise order doesn't make sense for me because it's not on my property.
It certainly garnered a lot of action from both sides. So we're getting somewhere with it, aren't we?
My hands are tied.
I know. I'm sympathetic to what you're saying. Absolutely. I don't know how I would, react in this situation myself, but it's a safety concern to both tenants. One's yours, one's his, or theirs. It needs to be remedied, and my next phone call would be to my attorney to work on getting that easement, and then you can come to that agreement and you guys can get your stairs fixed, and we won't have to be here talking about it. That's all I have to say.
Matt, were you next?
Well, just to clarify, for the raise order, there's no driving factor involved in that would push towards any sort of easement conversation because the city can't get involved in that. This is purely for the stairs. Just to make sure we're very clear on that fact, that the easement, that the raise order would basically drive them to the stairs to be replaced either by them or by us. Any conversation about easement or any conversation about shared cost or anything could theoretically be outside of the raise order between the two parties and not involve us.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, the city has one role here. Number one, if you adopt the raise order, you're giving them X amount of days to fix the problem. And if you don't fix the problem, then, as I said before, second step is what? Do it by yourself, tear down the building, which you have the authority to do, but is highly not your best option,
Not
obviously.
encouraged, yeah.
Or direct me to just, do the process to go through the court system and say, here, Judge, this is what we have. And if we go to court, Troy has the opportunity to come up, present whatever evidence, and the judge will make the decision and he'll tell everybody what the deal is. So I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that if we go to court, we're gonna beat Troy over the head and we're just gonna do what we want. That's not how this works. It'll be a hearing,
Yeah.
and everybody will have the opportunity to say, Judge, here's what we have.
And that's where I think we boil down to what you say. This is a safety concern that we have. That's why we're here. And the fact that you're here indicates a lot. And the fact that we're obviously talking about, the building and what's where and whatnot, it makes it a little more clear. It still boils down to we need the stairs taken care of. And the raise order does that. And it either replaces it by us or by the Maloney's. Because if Troy feels that all the stairs are on the Maloney's and the Maloney's pay for it, and any sort of conversation between the Maloney's, and Mr. Rendy about easements and cost sharing is outside of us.
That's correct.
Well,
And I encourage you, obviously, if we go the route of going to court, to come with us and present this information. If your property line is in the correct location, obviously you have a case that the stairs aren't on your property, and that's an issue for you. You do receive some direct benefit for having access for your tenant, and there are complications about putting in second staircase, and there is an issue with an easement, but that's, I think, for you to deal with the Maloney's on, outside of us.
Well, and I'd like to ask, did anybody actually read the raise order statutes at all?
We have a walking raise order statute
Yeah.
expert, yeah.
So I did, and I tried to get kind of the spirit of the statute. And in my opinion, the spirit of the raise order is to address buildings that are falling down, the roof is caving in, the structure is unsafe, windows are all busted out, houses that are, maybe in a dilapidated area.
I have to stop you there, Mr. Mayor. I think that the raise order intent is to fix any sort of issues that may be a safety concern. And you quoted back to me my quote about turning an ankle.
Mm-hmm.
What if what's her name, Paul, dies in a fire? I mean, it's a safety concern. And I think a rolled ankle is a lot less intense than a death by fire. And that's kind of why we get to the point and our only action that we have is a raise order. I mean, we can't send Davis out there with DPW and start ripping off his stairs.
I think, just to weigh in again, the remedy that you're seeking is got to be with the Maloney's, and that can happen through the process that we need to go through. Consult with an attorney or don't, but that negotiation needs to continue. I appreciate the fact that you've offered and tried to work something out with them, but that puts, saying that here tonight in defense of what we'd like to do puts us right back in the situation we were in months ago, and I don't think there's any tolerance anymore for that. So one way or the other, this needs to move forward, and I think there's opportunity for you to make these arguments, and if necessary, approach the Maloney's either with damages or with a negotiation. This isn't going to happen overnight. The hearing will take some time to get on the calendar. There's a lot of opportunity to get out there and fix the darn thing before the hearing date even. So I,
But
just
you
to
do
reiterate.
understand I don't have the authority to do that.
Well, with their permission, you might. I mean, you can certainly pick up the phone and call them 500 times a day. I mean, I don't care how it gets done. But I think the options that Paul has given us are the options that we need to consider and for the city's sake and public safety's sake, move it along.
Reagan, go ahead.
Yeah, so to your point, the raised order, and I'm not a lawyer either, but safety issue, fire escape, no brainer. Raise orders effective. You need the stairs to be able to collect that rental income. I would urge you to proactively seek cooperation with the Maloney family. We can't force cooperation, and as it's been stated, that ain't our job. Our job is public safety for an issue that's been brought to our attention. Now we have to handle it. So again, we can do the raise order and give everybody lead time because court dockets are way too full, as everybody knows from reading news reports. That would then give you the opportunity to proactively seek their cooperation. And like Regan said, call her 500 times a day, man. You need the stairs. Doesn't matter that it's not your property, is my take on this whole thing.
Rod, did you want to say something?
I think the option that no one's talked about was do nothing, and I don't think, and you can correct me, we can't not do nothing. We have to do something because now we've established that this is an unsafe stairway. So the city has established it's an unsafe stairway, so this has to be fixed or else it's on us, isn't it?
It would be my suggestion that that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
Matt?
Paul, sorry, I guess to ask kind of the dumb question about the raise orders. Obviously, for 127 for Maloney's, the raise order is for the stairs. And if we, again, follow along the line of the property line, if, let's say, 100% of the stairs are on Maloney's property, raise order just directs them to replace it by said date, or we do it, blah, blah, blah. Is the reason why we have a raise order for Mr. Rindy is because of the fact that it's a shared staircase, even though the stairs are not on his property. So there's no way to raise the Maloney's but not raise Mr. Rindy, if that was, I mean, I'm just making sure that we're really hashing out the details of what the raise order really is intending.
I believe that based on the information.
You can't do one without the other kind of thing, I guess.
Well, that was my original thought, but based on the information that Troy has presented with the photo showing his purported property line here, the raise order for Mr. Rindy's property could conceivably be amended to provide that he must have a safe second exit that meets SPS codes. And if he's correct, and if he's correct that a safe second exit is the ability to launch, for the tenant to launch herself out the window onto the roof, onto the ground, if that's okay, then
if that falls within the purview of what
he's got an acceptable second exit. I guess I'd like to know if that's okay. But if he has a second floor apartment in the rear that has adequate exits for his tenants, the city no longer has any business with him.
And I guess that gets us to the point where, do we raise the Maloney's 127 right now to deal with the safety issue of the stairs, setting date, and then continue down that line to see what the impact may be for.
The issue with the Maloney property is that the stairs are clearly on their property.
Mm-hmm.
According to Ms. Waddell, the landing belongs to Troy, according to her. So if she's right, that's a whole different problem.
And wouldn't that conversation be happening at the court proceeding or between the two parties?
If we end up in a courtroom, yeah, the city has to show who owns what, where, and when. But for purposes of right now, as you all have indicated in the last however long we've been talking about this, the easy answer is come together, get an agreement, and fix it. That's the easy answer.
Yeah.
But I, like I said before, I agree that, you know, the stairs are the 127 problem. The second entrance and exit for the rear apartment is the 125 problem.
Except for Mrs.
Armstrong.
I'm sorry. Mrs. Waddell feels otherwise by the fact that the landing is.
She believes that it's a joint problem because she has the stairs and Troy has the landing.
So then I think it boils down back. We're back where we are initially, which is we raise both to drive this conversation to happen,
Which
and
landing?
have the.
Well, right, no, you, if you're gonna do any form of raise order tonight, you have to do for both properties.
Yeah.
It's just a question of the wording can be changed a little bit because Troy is now presenting an issue that gives him the opportunity to maybe find a way out by himself.
Okay, so I guess maybe we're at a point where it's clear that we're looking to raise and maybe amend the language for Mr. Rendy and bring that back to us next time, and it gives them time to have conversations to possibly stave off that action.
I think as you sit here right now, I think you have two choices, two immediate choices. Choice number one is, do nothing tonight, bring this back to the June 20 meeting, so I can call SPS, so Troy can do.
Outreach.
Do whatever he wants to do. And then at the next meeting, make a drop dead date. Or you can make a drop dead date tonight just to start the clock running, and I'll amend the orders, and the mayor and the clerk can sign them tomorrow. So, I mean, either way, you're gonna end up in the same boat. It's a question of if you wanna give 2 more weeks to perhaps give Troy some time to finalize whatever he thinks he needs to do. And for me to get the answer to the 2 questions that you've raised.
Maybe it's a hybrid of both, set a drop dead date, but far enough out that it would have been roughly the same time.
Excuse me.
I don't know, I mean, I think I'm all for, we have to pick a date anyway if we're gonna move forward with the raise order. My perspective would be, you have a tenant, the raise order gives us the I mean, no one's disputing that if we wanted to, we could do, ask Ms. Armstrong to have to vacate because of this issue. So I guess altering the language can happen at any time, even after we give a drop dead date, and even after we issue the order, we could amend it. I don't really feel like giving more time. Reasonable time, yes, but, you know, waiting another 2 weeks or waiting to amend or, you know, giving an extra time frame just to work this out, I think, you know, we're there already. Let's give the date and issue the orders. And
What do
we
you-
can amend the orders if we need to, or he can work to correct the situation in the meantime.
What are you thinking for a date?
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but it seems to me that it should not be more than 2 weeks.
More than 2 weeks to
As a drop dead,
to
put in the order,
put in the order.
yeah, in the language of the order. Under number 4.
So for-
That is June 20th.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks that we keep talking about, but, you know, I. Right, I just think that's enough time for the conversations to happen and, you know, voluntary repairs to start, so, I would be comfortable in making that motion that we put a drop dead date in the raise order of June 20th and issue the orders.
And when it's worded as voluntary repair of a stairwell, is that stairwell completion intent with a contractor partially
Yeah.
worked on?
The building inspector is going to have
Right.
to see whether it's up to his satisfaction or not, I'm guessing.
Right.
I mean, I guess if.
That's
if-
the opportunity for them to do this in a cost-effective way that we've been offering the whole time.
I'm sorry, Ann.
Oh, I just was reading the statutes and I had a question.
Okay.
The way that the raise orders are set up right now, is that in paragraph 4, you're giving the two owners until a certain date to voluntarily take care of things. And then in paragraph number 2 and number 3, in the second part, you are giving them a second kick at the cat, basically. So sorry for all the cat lovers, but you're giving a second chance, and you are then putting the 30-day or 20-day or 45-day rule, which gives me time to get court proceedings lined up and stuff like that. You can take out paragraph 4 if you wish, because if you give a 45-day drop dead order today, then you don't need paragraph number 4. And then the third question is, and I know I'm probably confusing you right now, but if you look at paragraph at the top of page 2, that's a different date for making the tenant leave. And it can be the same date, or it can be tomorrow, if you want it to be. Now, I would urge you not to make it tomorrow.
Right.
But, you know, that's a different date altogether at your discretion.
Well, I mean, if we want to take out 4 and just put the 45 days in the language, I think that would be reasonable, or give the 2 weeks and still put the 45 days in.
Those are your choices.
Yeah.
You did have a motion.
I did, so I guess I'll amend my motion to strike paragraph 4 and use a 45-day window in paragraph 1 after the now therefore section in the raise order. And the removal of the tenant would be the same amount of time, 45 days.
So to clarify, or is that a amendment on both properties or just the Maloney's?
I am making the motion that this applies to both properties, both raise orders.
So is it the council's intention to remove my tenant before going through the court system?
I think it's our intent to spur action. Our intent is to avoid any kind of eviction, if I can go ahead and speak for the group, because that's the conversations we've had for the last month.
Well, I would just request that if the council plans to remove my tenants, that it go through the court system.
I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
It has to.
That's the 45 days with the
Don't have
raise
to.
order.
don't have to, but
But that's the way the motion has been formed, that it will be going
So,
forward.
so just so we're clear, it's not like the council has the authority to evict my tenants without going through the court system?
That's
I
not
th-
what we're doing.
I think we do, but we're choosing to go a different route with the raise order. So we're working with you. We don't want to do what you're suggesting.
Okay.
Basically,
Second
that-
Regan's
basically
motion.
The paragraph regarding the tenant is going to be changed so that it reads, so that it gives you the option to basically remove the tenant at any time after a certain date. Because right now, it just says that, the way it's worded right now is that as soon as the mayor signs this, a note goes on the door that says you've got 45 days from the day to get out. That doesn't seem to be your intent. Your intent seems to be that we're gonna let this process play through, and then we'll deal with the tenant later on. So the council will be authorizing the removal of the tenant, but at a date to be set later.
That's my understanding and that's my comfort level.
Yep.
Could you repeat the motion that you made? I'm sorry, I didn't get the dates written on the first section, number 4,
so striking number 4.
on the last page, which is the number, right
No,
here?
first
number 4 on
number
the
4.
first page.
Okay, we eliminate that, okay.
In both agreements, right?
Yes.
On both.
On both. And so, and then in paragraph 2, making it 45 days from today, at the end of the sentence. And then Paul is going to amend number 3 to use language that includes may as opposed to shall, but with the same 45-day date.
45 days from today.
Yep.
Got it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to execute raise repair orders for 125 and 127 West James Street, 45 days from today. Do we have to have anything in this motion to include the court, seeking the court order? No, okay.
So that'll just flow,
Okay,
based on what we've talked about so far.
okay. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Unfortunately, I do have one question. And then the second number 4 was changed from shall to may.
No,
Was that
Paragraph
correct?
3 on.
Paragraph
Paragraph
3. Okay.
It'll read, the building inspector is ordered to post a placard. The building inspector may be ordered to post a placard anytime after that day.
Good deal. So may giving us flexibility.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Again, trying to work with everybody.
Okay, so we have the motion and the second on the floor to execute the raise orders for 125, 127. Any further discussion on the motion? Matt?
Just to make sure, so we're giving them 45 days to take care of this issue before we take action ourselves. Okay.
Correct.
Any other motions? Ann, could we take a roll call on this, please?
Kenny,
Aye.
Malat,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rule,
Aye.
Traxler. Hendrickson,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and for coming in and speaking to us. I think that that's helped the council greatly.
Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate your time. Thank you. On to the next agenda item number 7. Consider and take action on the resolution to support dark store regulations in this at the state level. This is something that I think we discussed at the committee of the whole. There's a sample resolution in the back. There has been some recent traction at the state regarding this, so it seems to be a good time to kind of pile on. I don't know if you wanted to say anything specific, Reagan, or?
I appreciate Patrick's legwork on this, and I'm absolutely satisfied with the version that's in front of us, and I think this is a very worthwhile endeavor for us to take action on.
I would agree. Any further conversation? I'll entertain any motions then.
Motion to pass the dark store loophole resolution.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the resolution to support dark store regulations at the state level. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. On to city claims in the amount of $678,264.96. Any questions on the claims or any requests to separate any of the claims? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the claims.
Motion to approve the claims.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the claims in the amount of $678,264, or $678,264.96. We'll take a roll call on that.
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rule,
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. And then finally, report of city officers. I'll turn the floor over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things to report on tonight. In light of the incident that took place in Cambria at Didion Milling, there's just been some efforts going on through the village of Cambria, and some of the things that have kind of taken hold here in the city of Columbus. There was a food drive undertaken over the weekend. There's been funds established, and the city's just assisted by putting that information up on the website. So if anybody's interested in helping our neighbors in this tough situation, I just refer you to the city website. I believe that there actually are a few local blood drives being set up too in the next couple of weeks. So pay attention to when those are scheduled if you'd like to help. Also, wanted to report some, not not very good news from Public Works. Davis and I talked late last week that it's been confirmed that we have a ash tree affected by the emerald ash borer in the city now. That was found on North Main Street through the DNR. I think the feeling is that it's been in the city for a while. The good news on this is that through the urban forestry grant that we had received last year, we do have an emerald ash borer plan to address this issue when it comes up. We don't believe at this point it would alter the budget. The plans are in place by DPW to really start to work on these issues already. So it's just felt important to let you all be aware of that. The DNR releases a list every couple of weeks of the new areas that are affected by this issue. And then just finally, I just wanted to note that wanted to apologize about the number 4 item that was placed here and was supposed to go to Committee of the Whole. So we'll get that back on the Committee of the Whole next time. So thank you.
I did want to mention, I thought maybe Patrick would mention it, but the steel reinforcement band went up on the Chapel Street water tower, which is kind of the last stage of the remnants of the repair work that happened last year. And I was able to get a ride up on the lift last Friday with Joe Hermanson to get a close-up look at the installation and all of the other repair work that had been done last year, and as well as some future maintenance work that he pointed out while we were up there. Also, reports from Recreation Director Amy Jo Myers indicates that the favorable weather conditions resulted in a very successful opening weekend at the Aquatic Center. Both memberships and attendance numbers are up in comparison to last year, and it looks as if the favorable weather will continue this week. Thanks goes to DPW staff, pool management, and staff there for all the efforts in helping to present all the pool improvements to the community as it opened this year. Besides the resurfacing project, there has been significant work done by staff to identify and repair leaks, crack pipes, and also replacing the sand filter media. And one obvious addition is the new kiddie slide. So there's currently a contest to submit names for the new Pelican slide, and the deadline for submitting names is Friday, January 9th, from my understanding. That should be this Friday. There will be a drawing and a prize awarded, so please stop by the Aquatic Center to participate in that. Also, another reminder that the Columbus City Council listening session will be a week from tomorrow, Wednesday, June 14th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Columbus Fire Station, which is located at 123 West Harrison Street. This is a continued effort by City Council to try to do these things annually or semi-annually if possible to get the citizens in Columbus to engage City Council and bring ideas forward. So there's been some advertisements or mention of it in the paper, the city website, and also a paper copy of it. So if anyone has any ideas that they'd like to forward to either Patrick, myself, or any council member, they're free to speak or bring any ideas forward at the listening session. So I'm glad to see that tradition is continuing. I did speak with Chief Randy Kane about that since it's happening at the fire station, and he said that he'll be present during the listening session for anybody who's interested in getting more information about the fire station and the space issues that they have there. So he'll be in attendance as well. I also wanted to mention that the current calendar has our first July City Council meeting scheduled on July 4th, so that's something we may want to reconsider at the next Committee of the Whole meeting for rescheduling. So I wanted to mention that, and then also mention that I will not be here at the next meeting on the 20th. I have a family vacation that's been planned for close to a year now, so thank Council President Reagan Rule in advance for assuming my duty of running the regular meetings and bring him some extra coffee and snacks. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything to add?
I just wanted to quickly add for all of the people watching. Wear your bike helmets, please. Wear your bike helmets. I know Mullins hands out coupons to the kids they see wearing their helmets. Looks like Chief has some. I now have some. So please encourage kids, adults, everybody, wear your helmets. I see a lot of people not doing that. That's my PSA.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we stand adjourned for about 5 minutes and we'll return for another meeting, the Committee of the Whole.
Yep.